Okay, so picture this. It's the year 1187, and the holy city of Jerusalem has just fallen to the great Sultan Saladin. Now, this was a conquest that didn't end in the usual bloodbath, but in a negotiated peace. It's the moment that cemented Saladin's place in history as this incredibly honorable warrior. But was it really that simple?
Yeah, the popular image we all have of Saladin, the one that's lasted for centuries, is of this enlightened leader, a man of honor who was respected even by his enemies for his compassion and his chivalry, in a pretty brutal age.
So, is that really the whole story? Well, that's what we're here to find out. We're going to peel back the layers of this legend that's been building for over 800 years and try to find the complex reality of the man, and of course, his most famous victory.
All right, first things first, let's really get a grip on this powerful legend we're talking about. His reputation for being compassionate wasn't just some story made up later. Nope, it was noted by people who were right there, including the very people he was fighting against.
I mean, even his opponents in the Holy Land, guys like the historian William of Tyre, recognized he had these incredible qualities. And this was long before he ever took Jerusalem. So this wasn't just propaganda. His enemies saw it too.
There's this famous story, right, recorded by Saladin's own secretary, that just perfectly sums up his reputation. A Christian woman's child is stolen, she appeals directly to Saladin, and he's so moved he buys the child back from a slave market with his own money and returns her. It's this amazing act of kindness that just crosses all religious lines.
Okay, but to really get why Saladin's actions in 1187 were such a big deal, we have to rewind the clock about 88 years. We have to look at a very, very different conquest of Jerusalem, one that cast a long and incredibly bloody shadow.
I mean, just look at the difference here. It is night and day. When the Knights of the First Crusade took the city in 1099, it was a week-long bloodbath, total massacre. When Saladin took it, the city's fate was negotiated. This contrast right here, this is the very bedrock of Saladin's legend.
This horrifying image, and it comes from a Christian chronicler who was there, it just captures the absolute brutality of 1099. That memory, that trauma, it set the stage for everything. Everyone, and I mean everyone, expected Saladin was coming to get his revenge. So what really went down in 1187? Well, after Saladin just completely shattered the main Crusader army, the fate of Jerusalem basically rested on the shoulders of two very different men. Right, so after that crushing defeat at Hattin, Jerusalem is basically defenseless. The man who steps up is a noble named Balian of Ibelin. And check this out. First, Balian asks Saladin for safe passage just to rescue his family, and he swears an oath not to fight. But then, the people inside the city beg him to stay and lead them, so he breaks his oath. Now here's the incredible part. Saladin not only forgives him for this, he gives Balian's family a military escort to get them to safety before he even starts the siege. It's just amazing.
So the siege begins, but after 12 days, the city's defenses are crumbling. Saladin's miners have breached the walls. Defeat isn't just likely, it's hours away. And so Balian rides out to meet Saladin, not to beg for mercy, but to deliver a final, absolutely shocking threat.
And this, right here, is where that simple, clean story of pure chivalry, well, it starts to get a whole lot more complicated. Just listen to Balian's threat. He basically promises mutual destruction. He says they will kill their own families to prevent them from being enslaved. They will slaughter thousands of Muslim prisoners and, this is the big one, they will destroy the very holy sites Saladin came to liberate, the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. He would leave Saladin nothing but a smoldering, empty ruin. So you see, Saladin's famous act of mercy wasn't just some spontaneous noble gesture. It was a pragmatic choice, forced by a credible and absolutely horrifying threat. Balian's desperate all-or-nothing gambit had actually worked. So the deal was this: pay a ransom, and you could walk free. And honestly, the prices were pretty low for the time. But the big question remained: what about the people who couldn't pay?
And this was the harsh reality behind the legend. For about 15,000 people, the fall of Jerusalem meant being marched away in chains and sold into slavery. Mercy had a price, and it turns out not everyone could afford it. So what we're left with is this really messy picture. It's a combination of calculated mercy, some genuine acts of charity, and the grim realities of medieval war. You have Saladin himself freeing many of the poor and elderly, but then you have wealthy Christian leaders, like the Patriarch Heraclius, leaving with wagons full of treasure instead of ransoming his people. And for thousands of enslaved women, well, Saladin's own secretary recorded a pretty horrific fate. So how on earth did this complex figure, a man who is both merciful and, brutally pragmatic, become this simplified, heroic icon that we all think of today?
Now, here's the really wild part. Saladin's modern heroic status was largely crafted in the West. You had European writers in the 19th century looking back with these romantic ideas, and they built him up as the perfect chivalrous opponent. And then, this idealized image was basically re-imported back into the Middle East, where it took on a powerful new life.
And you see this echo throughout the 20th century. Leaders from Nasser in Egypt to Assad in Syria and even Saddam Hussein in Iraq, they all invoked Saladin's name. They drew this direct line from his victory over the Crusaders to their own modern political fights, using his legend to rally support against Western influence.
So, Saladin's story really leaves us with this one big, critical question. When we look back and celebrate the heroes of history, are we actually seeing the real person in all their complexity? Or are we just seeing the legend that we need them to be? His legacy is just this powerful, powerful reminder that history isn't only about what happened. It's about how it's remembered, how it gets reshaped, and how it gets used for centuries to come.